What's up, Goon Squad, and welcome to the Super Bowl 52 recap podcast. Let me take a minute right off the top to remind you that the Philadelphia Eagles are the Super Bowl champions. They are the champions of the entire world. In all of the Milky Way, they are the champions of the world. All right, we're going to try our best.
Go ahead one more time. Just say it one more time.
They are the world bleeping champions.
Felt good, right?
They are the world champs. Yes. We're going to try and not let, our fandom totally derail this. I'm a little sad because Miles is under the weather tonight. And, I know he's sharing in this joy as well. Rocco's got the Wentz jersey going. He was there to support the team this weekend. So, it's probably not going to work, but we're going to try and keep this mostly impartial here. It's really hard when you waited this long to, not let some of the excitement come in. I will make this promise to you. I will not cry on this podcast. I think at this point I've gotten all the crying out. I think. So fresh off of one of the most exciting games from start to finish in Super Bowl history, we're here to break it all down for you. We'll look back at the game, and then we're going to look forward just a little bit to next season already, because it's fun to already try and make crazy predictions about next season. That's why Vegas already has odds out, right? So first things first, though, let's react to this. After the game ended, I want to know the reactions that everybody had, because I know we have a combination of some Eagles fans here, some Patriots haters. What was your initial reaction and feeling after the game ended?
Shock and disbelief. Like, I wanted the Eagles to win, obviously. I was there with you guys. I was supporting them, not only for you, but also because of my hatred of the Patriots. But at the whole entire time, I still had, the Patriots never seemed to have control of the game, and yet somehow the whole time I was, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for Tom to be Tom. So when it all happened, it was just kind of like, wow, it finally happened for you guys, and I finally this felt different. Watching Tom lose this time felt different than watching him lose versus the Giants. I'll be honest, it felt different. It felt like this might be like the start of the end. You know what I mean? If not even the middle of the end.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it took until yesterday afternoon, honestly, for this to really kick in. Once I saw Jeffrey Lurie come off the plane and hold the Lombardi trophy up in the air, and just thousands of people, at a private landing strip south of the Philadelphia International Airport, it really was very surreal. And at this point now, I'm just kind of reflecting on it and thinking about, man, it really happened. It's not another situation where Ricky Manning Jr. just terrorized this franchise, or it's not another Rondé Barber situation. All those things that hurt for so long are just gone. I feel like if I saw Rondé Barber tomorrow, I'd probably hug him and just be like, dude, it's okay. And for the longest time, all I wanted to do was hit him in the face with a board.
I'll be honest. No matter what happened, I can promise you that Miles would not hug Rondé Barber. No matter what happened on Sunday, I can promise Miles wouldn't hug Rondé Barber.
I was just excited. Well, I mean, I was obviously excited for you guys because you deserve it, but I was excited for my wife because she's like an actual legitimate female football fan. Not to the point that we are, obviously, like most of the world's not, but probably there are like NFL owners that aren't fans like we are, but she's like a real football fan, like to the point where that night she was wearing her vintage starter Irving Fryer jersey that she's still rocking from high school.
Like, she tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, so she's not one of those fans that pretends like they know everything. She's stays in her lane, but she legit follows them. So I was happy for her. She that's the football fan that deserves the win. Plus, it's my wife, so you got that.
It's bonus points, man. To have and rock an Irving Fryer jersey, like that goes beyond novelty. That's just straight up it becomes part of like who you are. It's all those memories from the excitement and all that stuff. So, and I know like we kind of got to walk through this with you when Peyton did it in college when we were all together, and it was so exciting. And we were just kind of like, oh man, I wonder. So I can get what you're saying. It's exciting, when it happens for somebody that you know. So,
yep.
All right, let's get into some of the biggest. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, can I be next? We did it for Deal like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then we did it for you guys this weekend. Can I please be next?
The rule
I'm gonna say I don't think you're gonna be next, man.
The rule is that you could have 2019 because next year's Carson's year. So as long as it's 2019, you're good. We'll let you have it. All right, let's talk about the biggest stories here coming out of the game, surrounding this game, and then moving forward as well into the offseason. Nick Foles, we talked about him quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, but I think it deserves another run here because I don't think a lot of people in their wildest dreams really believed that Nick Foles was going to turn in the kind of performance that he did in the Super Bowl. And I know I'll tip my hat to you guys because you did predict that Foles would be the MVP of this game. So it's not super far-fetched, but I think even for you guys to go as far as he did and basically go shot for shot with Brady, I don't think anybody really fully expected that.
Yeah, I almost nailed his stats.
It's true.
I was off by like 70 yards, but 3-1-1, I got that.
How high of a commodity do you think that he is now on the open quarterback market? Not necessarily from the perspective of what the Eagles want to do with him, but do other teams want to come after him?
Yes and no.
If they're
listen, I understand. I understand the hype around the thought process of, wow, the Eagles could probably fleece somebody for this guy. But I think, unfortunately, I don't think this is the year for that to happen. South, you kind of said it the other day, with us that the QB market right now is kind of saturated, and there's going to be minimum four rookies, in the first round, maybe five. If you got your big four, and then Mason Rudolph is another possibility. So that's five right there. Cousins is moving teams. Alex Smith already has. You have three starting quarterbacks in Minnesota. Only one of them gets to be the starter in Minnesota, if any of them. And then obviously Nick Foles. And right now you'd have to say that Nick Foles is the best option out of all of those things. The problem is somebody going to want to overpay for that, or is someone going to want to take a shot at a young rookie, or someone going to want to take a shot at a cheaper option rather than going with Nick Foles? Because at this point, you'd have to trade for Nick Foles and then probably wind up having to rework a deal for him as well, in which he gets paid, more so in line with what the other quarterbacks are making. So not only are you going to have to give up high compensation for that, then you have to pay the man. So I think, like I said, I think he's the best option of everything that I just talked about. All five of your college guys, plus Cousins, and the three Minnesota guys. Alex Smith has already changed teams, but I don't think teams are going to want to pay for them with all of those other options out there.
I think that the market's good for him. I don't think that he's going to leave. I think that if I'm him, I'm staying there just for that camaraderie on that team and how well put together the team is right now. Even if you're the backup, I feel like you're in a better situation than going to a terrible team. Now, I understand that money talks. I understand that these guys want to start. And there's probably six or seven teams that I could see him going to that either have somebody that is replaceable or don't have somebody right now. But I really think he's going to stay no matter what.
Yeah, here's the thing. I mean, I think that if he's smart, he wants to stay, because I think he said all along that he's really content with where he's at. He's the next man up. He's in a system that he's comfortable in. And honestly, like, who knows at this point? Like, I think we all feel pretty good about Wentz coming back and being on track, but Foles could play 2 or 3 games next year without a doubt. And I mean, Miles drove this point home to us the other day. Like, Carson is the kind of player who's probably going to miss a game or two. every season.
The way he plays.
So now you're a guy who could be a part of a winning team as opposed to going out there and getting saddled with the Browns job or, one of these other jobs that is a little less desirable, but you're going to make some money and be the starter and just go out there and get killed. So if I'm him, I'm not in much of a hurry, to be honest. If I'm other teams, I said that the market was saturated the other day, and I agree. And the response that came back was it's not saturated with Super Bowl MVPs.
Right.
So there's something to be said about how he has played in the playoffs. And I know this is a quarterback-friendly system, but you still have to go out there and make the plays. You still have to go out there and make pinpoint throws. You still have to go out there and basically have the big ones to do what he did and match, series for series with what Brady did. So there's something to be said. I think something has clicked with him. He's talked about how he considered retirement. I think something happened with him where he said, look, I'm not going to retire. I still love this game, and I'm going to work even harder than I did before. So if I'm another team and I'm close, like I'm in Arizona where I can maybe just retool and make another run at it, I think I would do almost whatever it took to try and get him, quite honestly. But if I'm a team that's far off, I don't think I'm as excited about the possibility.
I think it's important to note too, and I've heard this talked about. This season showed you how important the backup quarterback position is to a team, not just because of what happened with Nick Foles and Carson Wentz in the positive, but like Aaron Rodgers goes down, the Packers season is over. You know what I mean? Packers were absolutely a playoff team with Aaron Rodgers. The Eagles have showed now that their roster was good with whichever one of them was at quarterback. And obviously both the quarterbacks played phenomenally and led the team. But that's a good roster, top to bottom, quarterback or not. But some of these other teams, Aaron Rodgers goes down, their season's done. Deshaun Watson goes down, Houston's season's over. And when we see it time and time again, you have to have a backup quarterback. So that being said, and the fact that he is under contract and that he does have to be traded away, the Eagles have to be absolutely blown away by an offer to trade him. And I know you've said that, South, and I know Miles has said that as well. It's got to be a first rounder, and it's got to be a top 15 first rounder.
Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. It's going to be a real interesting offseason there, regardless of what happens. So, I'm looking forward to it, obviously. Let's talk about the Patriots here. They seem to make so many uncharacteristic moves. Really, this whole Super Bowl week, the 2 weeks leading up and everything, from benching star players to their play calling, some uncharacteristic calls such as, settling for a field goal on fourth down, going for a random field goal or going for it randomly on fourth down and not getting it. Do you view this as the beginning of the end for the Patriots?
Is Tom Brady still going to play for them next year?
I believe so. I mean, we haven't officially heard yet, but I believe he will be back.
Then no. He was just the MVP of the year. He just threw for 505 yards and 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. And they're going to be just fine. They still have Tom Brady. They still have Bill. And they just piece together parts. It doesn't matter. We've talked about it a million times. It doesn't matter who else they have. Like, it's not like they went 5-11 this year. They were the best team in the AFC, went to the Super Bowl, and almost won it. So I don't have any reason to think it's different again next year.
In today's NFL, does it strike either of you as odd as like, we always say, well, they piece it together and they get the right guys, not necessarily the best guys, but the right guys. At what point do guys just not want to play for Bill Belichick and his style of football? You know what I mean?
Not yet.
Well, that's an interesting point, though.
Not yet, but like this whole Malcolm Butler thing is gonna rub people the wrong way. Like, okay, so let's just throw it out there. I'm not saying Malcolm Butler wins you that game, but he was your number one corner all year long. He played 98.9% of your defensive snaps all year long, and you benched him for the entire. Like, I understand punishing a guy because of like team curfew or whatever happened, and we'll never know the full story. But like, you benched your best secondary player to prove a point in the Super Bowl, and that might have lost you the game because who's to say that, like, with Malcolm Butler in the game early on, that Stephon Gilmore wasn't covering Alshon from the beginning. Maybe Alshon doesn't make that first touchdown catch, and now it's not 9-3. Now it's 6-3. It changes the game completely. So, like, at what point do, like, guys start looking around the locker room going, you know what? Like, all right, Malcolm messed up, and we got to put some blame on him, but, like, our coaching staff let us down.
Yeah, that's a good point because, like, that was reportedly done, like, 6 or 7 hours before the game. And from everything that you hear, and you don't know like what is true, what's not true, what's, stretching it or whatever. But from everything that you hear, this was a divisive thing in the Patriots locker room. So it absolutely divided them. Apparently the coaching staff was not on board with it at all. It created a rift, allegedly, between Matt Patricia and a lot of his defensive assistants and Bill Belichick. So it was a contested thing. The locker room supposedly, was taking sides on Sunday. And we're talking like 6 to 7 hours before a game. This wasn't something publicly that came out earlier this week. So, when you start to get that and your locker room starts to think like, man, like you're taking one of our best players and being petty. And I think it was petty because the rumors are basically like he had a girl in his room past curfew. He was eating Popeye's chicken past curfew. Like he may or may not have been high past curfew that made him want to eat Popeye's chicken. He's disputed some of the stories. Some of them have been, supposedly confirmed by some media people. Regardless, you know what I mean? Like if he had a girl in his room past curfew, like that's a grown man and you're trying to win a Super Bowl the next day. Come on.
I think it's interesting too that like I've heard so many conflicting reports on this. I actually heard that Eric Rowe didn't know that he was going to start until they went out on the field for warm-ups.
Warm-ups, yep.
That's not 8 hours before. You know what I mean? So if Belichick and them had made up their minds, previous to that, and you tell a guy, 2 hours before the game, hey, by the way, you're starting today. You haven't started a game all year, but you're starting today, like for the Super Bowl. Like, I don't know. It just seems like it. I'll be honest. Like, if we've all played, sports at some level, I know it's not the pros, but like, you start to lose faith in your coach if he starts pulling moves like this. You know what I mean? So I can only imagine that grown men who are getting paid to play are going to start thinking the same thing at some point. So then, then the question becomes, how long does this last where guys want to play for Belichick? I mean, we've already gone through the last month and a half hearing about how there's tension between Brady and Belichick. So I think this is the beginning of the end. I understand what you're saying, Deal. As long as Tom Brady's playing, they're going to be competitive. But like, at some point, they're not going to go 14-2 and 13-3, and they're going to go be competitive at maybe 10-6. That'll be the first step. 9-7. That'll be the first step, and then eventually Brady's going to go before it really hits the fan. So
I think that Belichick's been a jerk for 65 years. Like this isn't a new problem. Now benching a player that might be new. But he's done stupid things and annoying things forever. So I just don't think guys are going to give up on when he's winning. Now, the question is this the beginning of the end? I don't think it is. Now, when they stop winning, I'm not playing for a jerk. But like we said, will high caliber, like the elite players go play for him? Maybe not, but it hasn't seemed to matter. So if Tom Brady's still playing for him, they piece together and he'll keep being a jerk and people will not like him and they'll keep winning.
Yeah. And look, we just found out like an hour and a half ago as well that Josh McDaniels started sending out offers to assistant coaches. Several of them were signed to contracts already and then reneged on the deal with the Indianapolis Colts to be their head coach and is now going back to the Patriots. What do you guys read into that whole development?
One, that Josh McDaniels is a jerk, and other words that I won't say on our family friendly podcast.
Tell me later.
I will tell you later. You can bet that if we were not on air, I'd have different words to say. No, I just think it's such a dirty move. Like, honestly, like, one, I understand if you don't really want to take the job. I get that that's his right to be able to back out. And you know what? He learned from the best, because I know a guy who took a job and then backed out.
Yeah, really.
A day later, but
did he write the note on a cocktail napkin to quit?
Probably. He probably did. I don't know, man. It's such a dirty move. Like, in today's NFL, where like everything is so like media focused and everybody knows everything 20 seconds after it happens or 20 seconds before it's about to happen.
Right.
Like, what? Like, how did they misplay this whole situation so badly? Like,
I have a theory.
Well, real quick before you get to your theory, I think the most frustrating thing for me, being a fan of the team that he quit on, is that he quit in such a time that most of the coaches that are high caliber got sucked up already, because we already had our guy. We didn't need to worry about who knows what these other guys, Matt Patricia and Shermer and all these other guys, who knows what they're going to be, but we have to assume they're better than now nobody. Right. So that's the most frustrating part, that now we miss.
I feel like the NFL should have some kind of rule in place. And I know they won't. And I know this is just me complaining about Patriots doing Patriot things.
Right.
But like they essentially just screwed a franchise.
Yeah.
And it's more particular, like, it means more to us being that Deal is a Colts fan. But even if Deal wasn't, I would still be upset, because the Patriots just screwed a franchise, and everybody's going to have to deal with it. And there's no repercussions. Nothing can be done.
Yeah, the Colts aren't going to get compensated for it.
No.
Yeah. And on top of that, like, now, whoever your head coach that you do agree with, most likely he's going to have to honor the contract of coordinators that he might not even want. So
I don't know about that.
According to what I have seen,
maybe
the Colts plan to honor the contract of the two defensive staffers that they brought in. So
that limits even more who they're going to get for a head coach.
Right. So that might be to be determined on like what their role is. So you might have that flexibility, but they apparently want to honor those contracts because
it's the right thing to do.
It is. So but I think like a guy like, if DiFilippo comes and he's your head coach, like, that's a pretty nice consolation prize.
Sure, but it's not the guy they originally wanted.
It's not McDaniels, and it's not the guy who you started to send in offer sheets for his coordinators after spending the entire day on the phone with him, working all that out. So, it is very dirty. Here's my theory on this. I'm not Adam Schefter. I'm not Rappaport. I'm not these guys that have like crazy sources. Everything that I was to understand about this whole situation with the Pats, very early this week after the Super Bowl, regardless of the outcome, Kraft was going to sit down Brady and Belichick and himself and try and iron this thing out. What if Brady went into that meeting and said, I will walk away if we don't get McDaniels back and we don't do whatever it takes to do it? Because there's a rift there. It's very obvious that there's a rift there. And it does seem like the one guy that really goes to bat for him, really is willing to do the things that he wants to do, was Josh McDaniels. He was thrilled when McDaniels came back. So, that's kind of my stretch of a theory, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how some of this news leaks out over the next couple of weeks, because something crazy happened for Kraft to all of a sudden throw a boatload of money at him and try and get him back. There's the whole, Patriots head coach succession theme that's out there. Who knows? It could be anything, but that's kind of my look at it as I'm just spitballing.
Definitely could be. My theory still is that Andy's not healthy, and it's scary for me.
It could be.
So you think McDaniels got there and said, listen, if Andy's not healthy and we don't know what his future is, then I don't want to be here?
I think they might know at least what this season is.
See, that's tough for me to believe, because I think McDaniels is an arrogant enough player to think that he could take Jacoby Brissett, who he already has worked with and turn him into a stud. I think he thinks he can turn anybody into a stud. I think honestly, if I was a betting man,
you're right.
Yeah. If I was a betting man, I would actually probably side with South Bet. I think Brady's throwing some weight around, and he's like, listen, me and Bill already are not getting along, and you're about to bring in somebody else that I don't know if I'm going to get along with. If you bring, unless you bring McDaniels back, I'm 41. I can retire. I can be happy. I have 5. You know what I mean? Like, he could say I could play, but I don't have to, and he doesn't have to.
Right. Of course.
All right, let's talk one more thing here, Patriots specific. Rob Gronkowski after the game was quoted as saying that he was going to have to take a serious look at whether or not he was going to be back next season. It's no secret that Gronk has been beaten up. He's had a plethora of injuries, broken bones, multiple concussions. Do you think that he's serious about this, or is this a case where emotions are raw? They just lost a really close game. You're feeling the wear and tear of a long season, and it just kind of came out.
I think it's a combination. I think not to play devil's advocate, but I think it's a combination of, one, he is always beaten up, he is always hurt. 2, it's raw, you just lost. It's tough. It's a tough thing to swallow. And 3, I think he's one of those guys where he just doesn't want to be in New England right now. And I know that sounds crazy to say because he's had the most productive career of any player in New England, not named Tom Brady, over the last 7 to 8 years. But at the same time, like, he's a guy that likes to have fun. He's a guy that likes to do things his own way. And as weird as this is to say, he has kind of been reined in a little bit. I don't think we've seen the full extent of what Gronk wants to do. You know what I mean? Wants to be, which is kind of crazy because he's without a doubt the most crazy man in the NFL.
He wants to go bazooka.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he wants to go someplace else. Honestly, personally, I think he wants to go back home. I think he wants to go to Buffalo. I think he would love to be a Buffalo Bill. That's neither here nor there, though. But I think he's thinking about these things because maybe it's just not fun for Gronk right now. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it sounds like to me. He's always played hurt, so the injury thing doesn't really, make me question anything. More so, I would question his commitment to the organization. That's the way I would look at it.
That one I actually buy because, I had talked about how I don't think people want out on the Patriots. He's the kind of guy that would want out, that he wants to just go somewhere, party, and, live how he wants to live. Although I do think injury plays into it some. Dude's always hurt.
Some.
But although, like, I bang on him all the time, and I do think he's like an idiot and like just who he is. I think he's a pretty bright guy, and he's like, I'm 28 years old. I got more money than I can spend. Let's just cash out and stay healthy and party. I don't have to be in the NFL to party, So I think he might want out.
All right, let's talk about this real quick. And I know, we're kind of going a little bit longer on some topics, but it's all relative stuff that is going to play out huge throughout this offseason. So, we really don't want to slight any of the conversation. And I think this one could be an interesting point of discussion as well. Do we as a whole overvalue the quarterback position? I mean, leading up to this game, everybody that you would listen to felt like the Eagles couldn't win the game because Brady was that much better than Nick Foles. Do we overvalue that whole head-to-head aspect? Or is this a situation where maybe Foles was just better than we thought? What's your perspective on that?
We do overvalue it, and to some degree we should be overvaluing it because it is the most important position in all of sports. And if you don't understand that, then you don't understand the game of football. And and that's not to pat ourselves on the back because we feel like we're right in this. But I will say this, and I've screamed about this for an entire 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, and I'm so glad that I was right in this argument. We spend too much time looking at quarterback versus quarterback when that really doesn't matter, considering the fact that they don't play on the field at the same time. They don't match up against each other, but it's the flashy and it sells tickets to argue that point of QB versus QB. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which quarterback is better per se. It matters what the matchup is that the defense is giving you. Brady is a better quarterback than Nick Foles. He just went out and threw for 505 yards. We knew Brady was a better quarterback than Nick Foles. What mattered was what could Nick Foles do against that Patriots defense, and what could Tom Brady do against the Eagles defense. I hate the whole, this quarterback is better than this quarterback, so this team is going to win. The argument doesn't even make sense. 0 sense that argument makes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I agree to an extent, but I do believe that you do have to have a really good quarterback to get it done. There have been the exceptions, the Trent Dilfers with just absolutely elite defensive units, or something else playing in. But overall, you do have to, you do have to have a really great quarterback. And I think we kind of, as much as I think we overvalue it, I do think that we totally underestimated Nick Foles. I really do. I mean, this is a guy who's done nothing but play exceptionally well in the playoffs. And I know it's only really this year and a Saints game, previously, but the big stage for the playoffs has never, ever shaken this guy. Like, his first turnover was a ball that Alshon probably should have made a little bit better play on and brought it in, and he tipped it up and it was intercepted. So other than that, we're talking about a guy who's basically been flawless in 4 playoff games. So I think a lot of it is that we really underestimated how good Nick is.
Yeah, that's exactly what. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
I was just saying, again, a guy that, other than the 16 games he played for Jeff Fisher, has been very, very good in his career. You're not talking about a guy that was awful for his entire career and then had a great 7 games since Wentz went down.
Joe Flacco.
You love Joe.
Nick Foles was really good when he played for Chip Kelly, and very, very serviceable when he played for Andy Reid in Kansas City. It was just those Jeff Fisher days that make us think that Nick Foles wasn't a good player.
Yeah. I actually had almost exactly what you had, Sal. That I don't really think we overvalued quarterback. It's so critical to have a good quarterback. Like, it's extremely rare to win a Super Bowl. You can have good seasons. It's extremely rare to win a Super Bowl without a good quarterback, without a great quarterback. Now, I know that's because, like, 95% of the time Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl, so that's an invalid point, I guess. But I agree. I think we undervalued how good Nick Foles is. He's a good quarterback, and it's not Nick Foles won on the coattails of an elite run defense. They gave up 505 passing yards, but they basically shut down the run. No, Nick Foles played a great game. He had a great season, and he's had a good career. So, yeah, we are undervaluing Nick Foles.
All right. Last point on the game specifically here. When all was said and done, what do you believe was the biggest difference in how this game played out?
I think their run defense. I think that they made them only pass, and then they went stride for stride with them in scoring. They kept the ball. They didn't turn it over. They kept plays alive. They kept drives alive. They left their defense rest, and I think their run defense held up. And although they didn't get at Brady that much, they kept them from running all over them and made them one-dimensional. Even though that dimension dominated, when you make a team one-dimensional, it makes a big difference.
There are a lot of lights at the Super Bowl, and the Eagles did not get caught with their eyes, staring at the lights.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they came in there with a goal, with a plan. They executed that plan, and they didn't let the stage dictate how they were going to play. You know what I mean? Like, you can't say it any other way other than, like, the Eagles did not let themselves get caught up in the moment, which the Falcons did, which the Seahawks did. This is how, not to take anything away from the Patriots' other championships, but that's how the Patriots have been beating teams, by letting the other teams get caught up in the moment and them just saying, well, we've been here so many times. The Eagles didn't let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it comes down to one word, just aggression. They didn't change what they did at all this season. The coaching staff, the players, they all wanted to just put their foot on the gas pedal and just go for it. So having the guts in your own territory late in the game to go for it on 4th down, make that conversion to Zach Ertz, that's huge. You know, Nick Foles going to the sideline and telling Doug, hey, I want to run the Philly special.
Philly.
4th and goal, and you're running a high school gadget play. You know, I mean, that's just guts. You know, I actually put the word balls on my paper. Like,
Whoa.
that was the difference. I know we try to keep it mostly friendly, but like the Eagles just had no reservations at all. They knew that it was going to take an extraordinary effort to knock off the Patriots, and they put their foot on the gas and left it to the floor the whole time. There was no let up, and they understood that they needed to, at every opportunity they could, go for the throat. And they did it. It worked out. So, all right, let's take a quick second here and talk about our friends at Gorb. All right, listen, we just witnessed, a crazy Super Bowl, back and forth action between two, really high-powered offenses. I would go so far as to say that both of those teams were extremely hungry for a championship. And it just worked out that the Eagles were just that much more hungry for the championship. And it reminds me that our friends at Gorb tell us that in life, you only have two choices. You can either get hungry or you can be hungry. And just like the Eagles did, just like the Patriots attempted to do, they had a game plan. They got hungry. They were focused. They set a goal and they went after it. And that's what our friends at Gorb are reminding us of with this amazing social media movement and athletic apparel movement that they've got going. Check them out at GHORBH.com on social media. You look up Gorb, the hashtag Gorb. It's taking over. It's just a movement that people are catching on to, and you can catch on as well. Get some great apparel, some great swag, if you will, from GHORBH.com. They'll have you looking great. They'll have you feeling great. All kinds of styles, a ton of selection. Check it out today. All right, guys, it is time to look ahead a little bit. Let's look into the future and have some fun with some stuff here. The first thing on the docket here, there are now 12 remaining teams who have never won a Super Bowl. This is not teams that haven't won it in a long time or whatever. In the Super Bowl era, there are now 12 teams who have not won. Personally, which one do you want to see of the 12 win it the most? I'll go first since you guys are a little tentative here. One of the things to me that always stands out is I think about the fan base a lot. You know what I mean? And I look at fan bases who have suffered through things, and it would be easy to say Cleveland, but I don't know, maybe because the Cavs have been a little better and they got one with LeBron, I'm not feeling as sorry for them. But the Indians have been pretty good lately. I look at the Buffalo Bills, and I think to myself, man, that has just been a good ownership. They've had a lot of really likable players from Jim Kelly and, all these different guys. And their fans, even for as nutty as some of them could be, with the flaming tables in the parking lot and whatever, that's just a really passionate group in Buffalo. They sit through terrible weather every year. They come out, faithfully. They cheer on their team. They believe every single year. They bought in this year. And I just think it would be extremely cool to see the Bills finally get one out of the 12 that are remaining.
I can agree with you there. I probably would pick the Bills too, but since you did, I'll pick someone else just to give us a little bit of flavor. I think the Vikings have been through a lot too. We don't think about it as much recently, but they were the first team to lose 4 Super Bowls. They've had some great Hall of Fame type players throughout, coming through, just like the Bills have. The fan base, I don't think, is as great as Buffalo or Philadelphia or some of the other classic fan bases around the country. But I think that city could definitely use it. I can't think of the last team to win a championship from that city either. You know what I mean? But I could see that. It's tough though because there are so many other teams in the NFC I like, and I don't necessarily like the Vikings. You know what I mean? So it does make it hard to say that I want them to win, but for the fans, I would want that for that city.
I picked Arizona. They've been around for 120 years and never won a Super Bowl. 120 years is a long time to do anything. Not win is the worst. Like, I don't have any reason at all not to like the Cardinals, like zero reason. And, David Johnson certainly deserves, even though he's still new, he deserves it. And Fitz definitely deserves to win a Super Bowl. If anybody in the NFL deserves to win a Super Bowl, it's Larry Fitzgerald.
Facts.
So I don't have any reason to wish them ill will. So yeah, the Cardinals deserve that Super Bowl, man.
Yeah, they were definitely number 2 on my list, and mostly because of Fitz. Like you
Yeah.
just find these players, and it's so rare that you just find like these players that are just such outstanding human beings.
Just
like
straight
Fitz,
class.
JJ Watt for the most part. Like I have my issues with Watt, like wanting to be on the camera or whatever, but like he's class.
He's still a
Like
good dude.
you could still cheer for these guys. So, if I was going away from like the whole picture and the fan base and everything, I could see your point though with Fitz. All right. Which team out of the Eagles and Patriots is more likely to return to the Super Bowl next year?
Both.
Yeah.
No, honestly, just because I'm going to back up my previous statement of I think this could be the beginning of the end, I think it's the Eagles. They just made and won the Super Bowl without their best player. All right, Carson's gone. You're missing your starting left tackle, your starting middle linebacker, and this team just, huddled around that team atmosphere. And the types of guys that they have, I don't think are the types of guys that are going to let that feeling die. Yeah. I can't see Carson being like, you know what, guys, we got one. Now we can relax.
Yeah, we're all set.
What I mean? We're all set here. You know what I mean? I look at that, the guys that are in that locker room, the Malcolm Jenkins, the Brandon Grahams, those guys are going to have tasted it, and now we're going to want to get everybody hyped up to go out and get another one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to give away my next point here, but I picked them both to make the Super Bowl next year. Just what Rocco said, they have an MVP caliber quarterback coming back to take over the helm, and then basically everything else they just had. And then same thing I say every year, I don't bet against the Patriots. So I think I'm going to pick them again for next year.
Yeah, I think the Eagles are more likely. I didn't get into the details specifically because I know we were talking about it. You guys made good points, with this Patriots dynasty thing. But I think that we have seen the apex. I think that comeback in the Super Bowl and the run they had through to this Super Bowl this year, I think that was the absolute apex of what this specific core is going to do. So are they good enough, even coming down the other side of the mountain, to make another run and win another Super Bowl? Absolutely, they are. But I just feel like it's going to be so hard when this Eagles team, with the leadership that they have in place, in the coaching staff, the front office, all these guys that are going to come back. And most importantly, like I look at Carson Wentz, and I know he's saying all the right things and he's elated to be a part of this thing. And he knows that he played a huge role, but he has to want one, on the field.
Yeah.
As much as anybody at this point. So I just feel like that's going to speak volumes, and it's going to help him to keep his team motivated. So I think it would be the Eagles for me.
I hope you meant we saw the apex a while ago, because we can't deal with 16 more years of this, man.
Well, that the ride up always takes a lot longer than coming back down. So,
could just be gravity kicks in.
Could just be a real steep decline as opposed to a slow, gradual climb.
Gosh, I hope gravity hits those suckers so hard.
Maybe the McDaniels curse will kick in. Who knows?
Yeah, they deserve that.
All right. At this point right now, before anything else really happens, Deal, you kind of alluded to what you're thinking already. Who do you have playing in the Super Bowl next year? And I'll throw this out there. I know Miles is not here. He did send his in. He's got the Eagles over the Chargers next year in the Super Bowl. And he says that the real Super Bowl is the week prior, with Eagles over the Packers in the championship game.
part of my crazy predictions that we're going to do in a little bit here involve the Broncos getting a quarterback, and therefore I like the Eagles versus the Broncos in next year's Super Bowl.
Wow.
I think they tool up, they get a quarterback, they use what's left of that fantastic defense for one more run and make a run at the Super Bowl.
Who are they going to get? Jesus.
Maybe.
Because the Texans' defense is probably better than theirs, and their offense is better.
Well, we'll see.
I mean, he did throw the word crazy in there, so
yeah, I can't believe Jesus is going to be their quarterback. Good for them.
Listen, I have got the Eagles repeating as NFC champions, and I've actually got the Steelers kind of getting back into things here. I think that they're set up in a position where if they could smooth this thing over with Lev Bell, they should be in a position with a couple key pieces drafted, maybe on the defensive side of the ball to really be able to jump them. I mean, that's how I really feel right now. Obviously, a lot is going to happen in the offseason. So I may not feel as strongly about either of these teams once other teams start to retool. That's the beauty of 2 days after the Super Bowl picking this. But I think I've got Eagles over the Steelers right now in the Super Bowl next year. All right, so who do you believe right now at this way too early point in the offseason will win the NFL MVP next year?
Better say Jesus. I pick Wentz. I mean, I said that it's going to be Eagles and Patriots, and it's always a quarterback, and I picked the Eagles to win it. So there's no reason it's not going to be Carson Wentz, unless it's Nick Foles.
Tasty.
Tasty.
Miles threw in his pick. He says Rodgers as MVP next year. Interesting little factoid. The last time that Rodgers broke his collarbone, he came back with a little momentum and won the MVP the following season. So
yeah, I'd say.
He's looking at a little bit of a repeated history there with his pick. I'm also going with Carson Wentz, though. I feel like he was on that track this year.
Yep.
I don't think the offense is going to get any worse than it was this year. He's got another year under his belt in this system, and now he's got the motivation of, man, I was on the sidelines when the rest of my team did this. Let's go. Let's get another one. So yep. I think he's my guy.
Yep.
I also want to go Carson, but I like to be fun.
He's going to say Jesus.
I'm not going to say Jesus.
How are you going to not say Jesus, man?
I'm actually going to go with Todd Gurley. I think, and that's because I think Todd's going to have another fantastic season next year. I think McVay is going to ride that ship until it dies, and I could absolutely see a scenario where we get Todd Gurley for 2,000. And if a running back gets 2,000, they're winning the MVP award. It's going to happen. So listen, if I gun to my head, I'd pick Wentz. But just to be interesting, I do think that's an absolute possibility.
I'm glad that you qualified that, because I was about to tell you to settle your tea kettle because you were getting a little nutty with the Gurley, in my opinion. I mean, if Gurley didn't do it this year with as many down years as guys have, it's going to be really hard. I mean, that's just my perspective on it. I get what you're saying.
You know as well as I do that if a guy hits $2,000, he's getting the MVP
hard
award.
not to give it to him, yeah.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because the next point here is to round this thing out for, the Super Bowl recap. Give me a random prediction for this offseason. And now Miles looked at it, going beyond the offseason into next season, which I think is okay, because I actually did too.
Me too.
He said that Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, and David Johnson are all going to go over 2,000 scrimmage yards next year and 16 touchdowns each for all three of them next year. So with that scenario, it kind of throws your 2,000 yards argument out the window a little bit, but that would be quite an interesting scenario to see how that plays out.
He's saying Todd's going to get 3,000 because he's going to get 1,000 receiving and 2,000 rushing.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you can go ahead, yeah.
I actually went a little bit counter to Miles. Once I saw his, I laughed a little bit because I also planned for next year because I'm already planning for fantasy for next year. And I said, no matter what, don't draft number one because if you're smart, you'll take a running back because we've been telling you that for years. And it's been since 2012 that a unanimous preseason number one running back or a guy that even should have been there took that top spot in scoring. And I'd be willing to bet almost anything it's not going to happen this year too. So take the slot. It's either 2 to 5. Already start planning because you should be planning already. I know the Super Bowl was like 2 days ago. You should already be planning for next year's fantasy season because you plan now, you win later. But unless you're dead set on a guy, take slots 3 through 5. You're not going to be able to miss on one of those slots and get a better one coming back through because we're going to see a new face as the top scoring running back again next year.
Mine. I took it to mean a little bit more traditional of the off season as we're approaching it, but it absolutely has to do with next season. I think we're going to get 10 teams with brand new starting quarterbacks for next season, and I know 10 seems like a lot, but if you really think about it, you have 4 rookie first rounders coming out, maybe 5. You got Cousins on the move. Alex Smith already did move, so that cements 2 teams for me right there because the Chiefs and the Redskins are both going to have new ones. Blake Bortles is up in the air. Carson Palmer's retired. So I counted it out, and I think the 10 new teams will have new starting quarterbacks for 2018.
You counted all the way to 10?
All the way to 10. I didn't have to take off my shoes and my socks.
Nice.
That's why he stopped at 10.
Listen, I'm getting nutty with this one. I usually do, but I'm getting nutty here. This is just to show you how nutty I'm going to get. This was going to be my prediction. I was going to say, this year we only had 2 quarterbacks throw for 4,500 plus yards. I was going to say next year we had 0. And then I thought to myself, that is pretty nutty because there were a lot of injuries involved. And I don't believe we're going to have nearly as many injuries next year. Maybe that's me, trying to knock on wood for fantasy purposes or whatever. But I'm going to scale back from that. And I'm going to go even more crazy. And I'm going to tell you right now, the 2018 New York Jets are going to win the AFC East. Write it down.
Don't do this to him, man. Don't get his hopes up like this.
They are going 11-5 next year.
Wow.
They are winning the AFC East. Listen, this offseason is going to be huge for the Jets. They've done a pretty decent job of scaling back a lot of their financial commitments to players. They're in a position where you could either go ahead and throw a whole bunch of money at a guy like Kirk Cousins. You could maybe throw some assets out there and try and get Nick Foles. Or you could sit there at number 6 in the draft and maybe maneuver just a little bit and try and get a guy like Baker Mayfield. If that doesn't work out, you're in a good position at the back end of the first round to maybe move back in and take a guy like a Lamar Jackson if you want to. Maybe if you like Mason Rudolph, you can move in there and grab him. If you don't like any of that, there's still a ton of decent free agent veteran quarterbacks that are going to be out there. We've already detailed that we wouldn't be shocked if Teddy Bridgewater was a Jet next year on a reasonable contract with a lot of talent, coming off of an injury. We could laugh about it, but you've got a guy like Sam Bradford who's proven to be very efficient. You get him in the right situation, he could be good for you. So there's a ton of options out there at the quarterback position. I do believe they're going to solidify the running back position. They're going to move on from some of the mess that they had there. They're going to get a young stud running back in this draft, somewhere at the top of that second round if they don't have to do something for a quarterback. They could even luck out and teams get desperate for quarterbacks and they're in a position to move maybe just a hair and get Saquon Barkley. You never know how this is going to play out. But I think that those 2 positions are going to be significantly upgraded. You have enough freed up salary cap that you can get some playmakers on the outside. There's options there. There are guys who want to move. there are players out there who are young and good who teams may want to trade. You know, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the history of the world if, you know, somehow the Jets ended up with a guy like Gronk because he wanted to be traded. You know, I get that it's a division rival, but they have the flexibility, the salary cap, and all these stuff to make some of these moves. And I really like Todd Bowles. I know that that's kind of like a crazy thing to say, but when you look at the talent level that was on that team last year and the way that those guys played for him, they played hungry for him. They bought into what he was doing. So that's only going to mean good things moving forward. I mean, they were competitive in just about every game, and they had no business being competitive with anybody when you look at that roster on paper. So I'm saying it right now. It's a crazy prediction. The Jets, 2018 AFC East champions.
You said you weren't going to cry, but Rocco is.
I don't know if he's angry or what.
You did it.
You broke speechless. Him. You broke him.
You broke me.
Yes.
I think you broke Rocco. I'm speechless. I got my poster behind me. I got my Brandon Marshall right here. I got my Jets picture over here. I got my Jets keyboard. All right.
Well, listen, we don't want to get carried away with Jets love, right? I mean,
I can't see it. I hope you're right.
You did this, South.
I hope you're right. I'm broken.
This is my own like internal Pats conspiracy. I wanted to get into the beginning of this offseason. I wanted to break Rocco for my own personal reasons. So I think I may have accomplished that, and we'll see how it plays out.
Because you're my arch nemesis.
It's true. All right, guys. Well, listen, we've had a ton of fun this season, and I'll tell you what, we are not going anywhere. You guys know we do not take an off season. There may be a week here or there where, you know, we decide to take a vacation or whatever. You know, somebody decides to get surgery or something crazy, or, you know, have a gallbladder fail or something. Who knows? But barring any of that, there is no off season for the Football Goons. We want you to keep up with us on social media. Facebook.com/footballgoons, @footballgoons on the Twitter, right here on YouTube as well. You can like our videos, you can comment on them, you can subscribe to us on this channel. We'll hit you back on all of those social media platforms. We want to keep the conversation going all off season. We love to hear from you guys on social media. Keep the comments, the questions coming. Keep in mind that with the off season here, we're going to be moving the show back to our off-season Sunday nights at some point here. An announcement will be forthcoming on that pretty soon here. But we will be live on YouTube, most likely Sunday nights at 9 o'clock. So prepare yourselves for that, unless you hear otherwise on any of those social media platforms. We're looking forward to the next couple weeks. We're going to hit you with probably 2 more recaps, just an overall AFC and NFC, and then we're diving head first into the off season. We've got a lot of cool stuff planned, a lot of new original stuff, and episode 100 is coming up pretty soon. And I am the only person that knows what is going to happen for episode 100, and it's kind of making me really happy. But I think everyone is going to really enjoy it. We're going to have a good time with it, and we're going to celebrate. So we look forward to what's coming in the next couple of weeks. Stick with us. There is no off season for the Football Goons. We'll catch you guys next time.